Welcome to today's class on water conservation essentials. My name is Todd Sutton, and I work for the city of Martinez as their sustainability consultant. Today's class is called Every Drop Counts, and that's the case here today. We really are wanting to focus on your individual power as it relates to conserving water. Long ago, when the earth was young, the skies rained and there was plenty of water. And those people of that time had plenty of resources. Now fast forward a few hundred years, or a few thousand years rather, and now we have millions and billions of people on the planet Earth, and they're all consuming water. Every day, you and I consume hundreds of thousands and billions of gallons nationally. As you know, we're right in the middle of a severe drought that's been going on for several years. And I think it's important for us to stop for a minute to understand where our water comes from. So we're going to start with the Sierra Nevadas. We've got a snow melt up in the Great Sierras, and that water melts down and feeds the Great California Delta, which is the San Joaquin and Sacramento rivers. Some of that water is diverted over the Contra Costa Canal, and then some of that water is diverted over to the Los Vaqueros Reservoir, where ultimately water comes out of your water tap. I'd like to stop right now and have Chris Dundon come in from the Contra Costa Water District and discuss the California regulations on water conservation.
Good morning. My name is Chris Dundon. I'm the Water Conservation Supervisor at Contra Costa Water District. Back in 2014, the governor declared that we were in a severe drought. He declared the emergency and he called on all Californians to conserve water in every way possible. In April of 2014, he asked every city and community to reduce their water use by 20%, and agencies up and down the state did so. The severity got worse, and as you can see in this map here, California is in a very severe drought right now. It's in what we consider an exceptional drought. And most of it is in the Central Valley and in the area we're in here in Martinez. Let me talk for a moment about snowpack. You know your water comes from a reservoir. You can think of a reservoir as perhaps a lake where we pump water and it goes into a canal and comes to you. It could be a reservoir in the city hills in Martinez. You might see a tank. That's a reservoir. The biggest reservoir we have in California is the Sierra snowpack. Think of it as a giant tank holding water all the way through spring, and then it lets it out during the spring and summer. Our reservoir is at lowest level ever. The Sierra snowpack is now at 5% of what it should be on average. That's lower than the previous lowest level, which was in 1977 at 25%, and again in 2014. So our snowpack is really low this year. So in 2015 now, since the snowpack has been real low and we're moving our way now into the summer, we're draining our reservoirs. So this is an example of one of the major reservoirs in California. Three of the key reservoirs are Shasta, Folsom, and Orville. All of them are very much below what they should be at this time. In April of 2015, this year, the state imposed some mandatory restrictions. The governor said, I'm issuing an executive order mandating substantial water reductions across our state. As Californians, we must pull together and save water in every way possible. He authorized the State Water Resources Control Board to have a statewide reduction of 25%. So the mandate was to reduce 25% statewide, and he authorized the state board to determine how they would implement that. So it didn't mean that every community had to cut 25%. They evaluated how low some communities were and how high some were, and so it ranged anywhere from 10 to 35% what each water district was asked to cut. Contra Costa Water District, which serves this area, including the city of Martinez, were asked to cut 28%. In addition to the reduction, the call for reduction in water use, there's also the state board adopted a series of water waste prohibitions. Many of these are fairly basic, and a couple are a little bit more draconian. No using water to wash down sidewalks. That's a given. When you're in a drought, you shouldn't ever do that. No runoff when irrigating. So if you've got a sprinkler system, you want to run it now and again with you standing there to see that you don't have a broken head or a turned nozzle that's spraying onto the sidewalk. No washing cars or trailers when you don't have a shutoff nozzle. no using potable water in a non-recirculating fountain. And here's two key ones that are very different from us. Some of these we've have had adopted for years, but no watering within 48 hours after a rainfall. It's as simple as saying, if it rained, if in 2 weeks we get a nice big rain, turn your timer off for a couple of days. And then I think the biggest change that we're seeing is no irrigation more than 2 times per week. That's probably the biggest change we've seen in the regulations. And finally, no watering during the daytime. You don't want to water in the day because you get a lot of evaporation. Restaurants and hotels have a couple extra requirements on them. Restaurants and other food service can only serve water when asked. So they're not supposed to come and bring you 6 glasses of water, for your family until you ask for it. And hotels and motels need to provide their guests with options for having their towels and linens not laundered every day. And most hotels, I think we find now, are doing that. And finally, the state mandate on water agencies, so on City of Martinez or on Contra Costa Water, we're supposed to impose the restrictions on outdoor irrigation. So the state had those mandates. We, in turn, adopted those and mandated for our customers. We're required to notify customers when they have leaks, which we do. And we report our water use to the state now every month. So if you want to go see how other agencies are doing, you can go to the California Department of Water Resources website, and you can see how each agency is doing month by month. And finally, we get water waste complaints daily, and we deal with those, and 99% of them we just deal with education. Customers don't know that the sprinkler's broken, and we need to report on those as well to the state. And next we're going to have Chris Kanya from the City of Martinez talk about regulations within the city.
I'm the water superintendent. I run the water treatment plant and take care of the reservoirs and the pump stations in the city. So I deliver the water to the city residents. Bob Cellini's department, they manage the Parks and Recreation department, which is in charge of the irrigation. So he takes care of the irrigation system and manages the 40% reduction for the city, which would include our park in front here also. Our temporary drought pricing adjustment, which was also mandated by the state of California, was to implement pricing incentives to get people to conserve water. That was the reason that we implemented a pricing adjustment, which in our water district, that amounts to 50 cents per unit of water used. A unit of water is 748 gallons. So when you're looking at your water bill, you'll see your 2013 consumption history, which will be in gallons, and you'll see your projected reduction usage for 2015. It'll be on the right-hand side underneath your bill in a nice little box, and we were able to do that for the customers, and I think it'll be a really good tool for people to be able to manage their reduction goals. Single-family residences using less than 200 gallons a day will receive a credit back of the 50 cents a unit on their water bill. So if you're using more than 200 gallons a day, then you'll have a pricing adjustment of 50 cents a unit. If you're using less, you'll see a credit back on your bill of that same adjustment.
Thank you, Chris, for answering those questions. I'm going to start with a pop quiz. How much water does the average single household family use every day? Any ideas? Any guesses? The answer is 364 gallons per day. That's the average here in Contra Costa County. And we're going to use that number moving forward as we discuss ways to conserve at home and outside. So this frame right here shows that 364 gallons per day broken down by outdoor use and indoor use. It's 58% outdoor use, or 211 gallons per day, and 42 gallons, or 42%, or 153 gallons per day. Those are your basic numbers. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that indoor number, that 153 gallons, and we're going to focus in on ways to reduce that number. But before that, I want to really focus in on that 364 gallons per day. It multiplies out to be over 132,000 gallons per day. That's a lot of water, and if you start looking at it as an individual unit, imagine having all those gallon jugs around. We've got a lot of water that we consume. And another way of looking at it is in 55-gallon drums. If you take your daily allotment, you every day use 6.65 55-gallon drums. So imagine every day a truck delivering 6.6 55-gallon drums to your household. That's really what's happening when you take that 364 gallons and multiply it out. So every day we're using this amount of water, and so we need to reduce our 6.6 down significantly. So our target here in Martinez is 25%. That's 91 gallons per day total. And it's broken down to 38 gallons indoor and 53 gallons outside. So we're going to go indoors here and talk about that. But let's do another quiz here and then we'll move on. Which of the following uses the most water per day? Toilets, dishwashers, faucets, or showers? Showers, someone says? Faucets? Dishwashers? All right, well, you've got all the answers there, but let's find out. The answer is toilets. 38 gallons per day, followed a close second by showers, and then faucets, and then lastly, dishwashers. And we're going to talk about all four of those shortly here. So, water use indoors. I think part of conservation starts with a desire. First, it starts by the desire to save water. And then once you have that desire, you focus in on that. And wasting water costs us a lot. Not just money, but it costs us a lot of wasted energy as well. And the delivery of water takes a lot of energy, which correlates into greenhouse gas emissions. So by simply conserving water, you're saving in a lot of different ways. So the idea is just to get focused on that desire to save, and then pay attention and do that every day moving forward. And that goes along with other practices in our daily life. How many minutes per day does the average household run their faucets? 9 minutes, 35 minutes, 15 minutes, 27 minutes, or 19 minutes? What's your guess? 35. 27, 35, 19. Well, here's the number. It's 35 minutes a day. It's a long time. Imagine doing that in one shot there. Just turning on your faucet for 35 minutes. After about 5 minutes, you think, man, that water's been on a long time. But in actuality, every household in the state of California is running their faucet 35 minutes per day. So I look at that as a great opportunity for water reduction. We're going to talk about faucets and water reduction shortly, but here is a graph showing basically the breakdown of water use indoors. Now, due to rounding, the numbers on the bottom show 20% and 20% and 19%, and the bars are a little offset. But again, this shows that the number one source of water use is toilets, followed by showers, faucets, leaks, and clothes washers. And we're going to go through all of those starting right now. An organization called Aquacraft did a study statewide focusing in on water consumption in California. And one of the findings is very interesting. It shows right here that 55 gallons per household per day can be saved by just some basic changes in your household. First off, using a conservative clothes washer that has a maximum of 20 gallons per load. The next is to reduce miscellaneous faucet use by 10%. Reducing and or eliminating leakage can save 25 gallons per day. And using a low flow toilet that has a setting or a use maximum of 1.25 gallons per flush. If a household had those four practices in motion or set, you would save 55 gallons per day, which, by the way, is 2 gallons over your outdoor goal. So there's some good numbers right now. So let's jump in and talk about toilets here. Here are your basic numbers. Again, we mentioned already 36 gallons per household per day. The average flush is 2.76 gallons per flush, 13 flushes per household, and 5 flushes per individual. Okay, so these are the basic numbers. Now that may be different for you, but these are the state averages, and we're going to use those moving forward. So when we talk about different types of toilets, there are high flow and low flow and ultra low flow, high efficiency toilets. So the high flow, the kind of the old fashioned toilets, use anywhere from 3.5 to 5 gallons per flush. The ultra low flow use 1.6 gallons per flush, and the high efficiency toilets use 1.8 gallons, 1.28 gallons per flush. So 20% of your daily use is coming from a toilet. Now, I'm going to break this down to an individual and what you can do individually to save water as it relates to using the toilet. So if one person uses the toilet, you can see, depending on the type of toilet you have, will determine how much water you can use or save. With a high flow, over 6,000 gallons, with an ultra low flow, just under 3,000 gallons, and with a high efficiency toilet, just over 2,300 gallons per flush annually. So if an individual can move away from 5 gallons per flush and reduce that by 2 flushes, you will save over 14.5% of your daily reduction target. Okay? So reducing of the 5 by 2, you're gaining 14% on your target. And we're going to tally all that up at the end here. So here's the action that we want you to take as it relates to toilets. Eliminate all the leaks. Check to see if the flapper is leaking. Check the tank level. If it's too high, it's going to overflow that little overflow spout, and you're going to every once in a while hear it auto-filling. Don't use the toilet as a waste basket. Don't just throw things in there and then flush it away. Test for leaks. The county, the Coastal Water District is offering these dye tablets. If you don't have these dye tablets, you can just use food coloring, like you'd use to make color your frosting on a cake. And you put the tabs in the tank, or you put some dye in the tank, and wait a few minutes and flush. And if the bowl has a color in there, then you've got a leak. So fix that. There are many water-saving options or devices that you can use. One that is possible is using this bladder. Now this bladder, I want you to understand, is just for a very high-flow toilet. Nothing low flow or ultra low flow would be used for this, because what happens is that bag goes in there and it displaces the amount of water in the tank. And if you put this in a low flow toilet, when you flush, you're not going to get enough volume of water, and you're going to have to flush a second time. So this bladder is very good if you've got multiple toilets in the house and you're not going to replace all of them. You can put one of these bladders in a high flow toilet. Another option is an aftermarket kit that you can buy that will allow you to have kind of a dual flush on your toilet. The old saying and the new saying now is, when it's yellow, let it mellow. When it's brown, flush it down. So there you go. You can use that dual flush system. And they're sold in kits, and you go in there and install that yourself, or hire a plumber to do that for you. And there's your test dye tabs. And you can put those in there. So now we're going to move on to showers. Here are your numbers. On average, the average household has 2 showers per day. On average, we're using 18.6 gallons per shower. The duration is 8 minutes and 42 seconds. And the average gallons per minute is 2.14 gallons per minute. So those are the basic numbers. Here's the math as it relates to an individual. If you eliminate 1 shower per day, you can save 50% or 49% of your daily indoor water goal. So it's an amazing amount of savings. And if you reduce it by 2 minutes, it's another 11% on your indoor goal. Now, I mentioned already we're going to roll all these data points up to show you how all these individual acts add up to a lot of savings. You can install low flow devices. The county offers a lot of these shower heads, and they come in different models. You can go to the local hardware store and buy these. This unit here is the one that's given away for free, and the others are some really good looking low flow options. Another thing you can install are these on and off devices that will allow you when you're sudsing up or shaving or whatever in the shower to turn off the water or turn down the water, which will allow you to save water while you're in the shower. They're pretty easy, they're not very expensive, and you just add them in between your pipe and your shower head. So actions you can take to save water. Check for leaks at the faucet where you turn the spigot on to turn on the shower. If it's dripping a lot of water there, you want to fix that leak. That's a great opportunity. You want to install low flow shower heads. A lot of folks, they're realizing that there's a lot of water being used, getting cold water to hot water. They're putting buckets or tubs underneath the spigot, waiting for the water to get hot. So it's a great technique to save a lot of water. You don't want to use a very big bucket because water is very heavy, maybe nothing more than 2 or 3 gallons. You fill that up and then go water your backyard. Install one of those quick devices I just showed you, one of those turn-off devices, and then certainly install a low-flow shower head. You can get one of those free. And there's also timers, shower timers that are available. Here's some images of that, the 4-minute timer. You can install one of these timers and you put that on the tile or the glass door and you turn it, and once this thing empties out, it's been 4 minutes. So let's move on to faucets. On average, we're using 33 gallons per household per day with our faucets. We have 57 events per day. That means during the day, in the average household, 57 times we're turning on that faucet, on and off, on and off, on and off. For me, this is something that I'm really paying attention to. It's really amazing when you think of 57 as a daily occurrence. And being aware that, you know what, this is one of my 57, now maybe I don't need to turn it on, or being very concerned or aware of how long I keep that water on. And so it becomes an opportunity. 35 minutes is the average use time. 37 seconds of those 57 events, we're on for 37 seconds. So there's a lot of numbers here, but the bottom line is we use our faucets a lot, and that becomes an opportunity for reduction. So here's the math. If we used 38.5 gallons per day throughout the year, it's 14,000 gallons a year. So what I'm asking you to do is reduce 5 minutes of your 35-minute use time, and that will equal 14.5% savings on your annual or daily use. So again, moving towards your daily goal of 25%, that's 14% right there. So we're going to look at that number in a while. Actions you can take. Again, repair your leaks. Adjust the valve pressure. Get underneath the cabinet and turn that valve down a little bit. What you do is turn the water on full and then turn the water down maybe about half or 3/4 right on that area, so that when you throw that faucet on, even at full, you're using less water than you were before. It's easier to turn it off at the gate valve than to do a self-adjustment every time you turn on that faucet. And that works really well. I've done that recently and I've noticed a significant savings. Okay, avoid unnecessary running of water when you're shaving or brushing your teeth or other things. If you're having to soap up your hands, turn off the water, soap it up, turn it back off, and rinse it again. Little things, it doesn't seem like a lot, but again, at 57 events, 37 seconds, again, keep your mind on the goal of reduction. Also, inserting these low-flow faucet aerators, something like this. This goes on a bathroom or a kitchen sink. Clothes washers. Here are the numbers. On average, we do 1 load of laundry per day. Now that's average throughout California. Some people are going to say, well, I don't do that much, but some people actually do more than that. So if you only do 3 a week and the average is 7 a week, that means somebody might be doing 10 a week. So there's a lot of laundry being washed out there, and on average, we're using 36 gallons per load. So those are your baseline numbers. Here's the math. If you can eliminate 1 load of laundry per week, you're going to save just under 2,000 gallons per year, and you're going to have a 13.5% reduction in your daily use. So what can you do? What actions can you take? Always do a full load. And somebody asked me, well, why do I have to do a full load? Well, if you have a smart machine or a new machine, they actually weigh the laundry. So it doesn't really necessarily matter if it's full. But if you don't have a smart machine, then you definitely want to fill it up, because it's going to use the same amount of water whether you've got it a third full or 100% full. So on an older unit, you definitely want to make sure you're running with a full load. You want to reduce the number of loads. You want to look to buying a high efficiency unit, and then the county, the Contra Costa Water District rather, is offering rebates on high efficiency units. And you can get up to $150 on these units right now. And you go to their website, be a list of these high efficiency models on the marketplace that qualify for this $150 rebate. Leaks, this is a big opportunity. It represents 18% of your daily use, but they're basically unseen or ignored. And it represents an 81% consumption or opportunity in your daily diversion goal. 31 gallons per day per household are being leaked in the form of small and large leaks. There are basically two kinds of leaks. There's an intermittent leak and a continuous leak. So here's an example. An intermittent leak might be a faucet that's got a handle that if you don't get all strong and tighten it all the way down, it's going to leak. So sometimes you remember and you tighten it so it doesn't leak rather. And sometimes you forget and you don't tighten it all the way and so it drips. So that's an intermittent leak. A continuous leak would be something that might be hidden behind the walls on a fitting or on an old pipe that's finally failed, and this thing is dripping all the time. Now you look at that patina on there, and it has taken a long time for that material to corrode like that. So this has been happening for years. So every day, this house is one of those households that's doing that 31 gallons per day. So you want to look for these leaks and repair them and eliminate them. So what do you do? Again, fix the leaks. Another area is, again, check your faucets. You want to check the flappers in your toilets. Look at that image right there. You can see the flapper is all curled up. So every time you flush, you dump the water out of your tank, and then when it fills up, it's going to be leaking slowly around that funky old flapper. So they're really easy to replace. They just take a couple minutes, and you're going to save water instantly. Another important thing to do is to take a look at your meter. If you turn every appliance off or every water user in your house off, and you go out and that dial, that little red dial on the left is turning, that means you're using water. And there are videos available on the Water District's website, or if you just Google how to read a water meter on your internet, you'll see many, many videos available that will show you how to read your meter so that you can determine whether or not you've got a leak. And then lastly, the small time users are baths, your dishwasher, and then the famous category other. So baths are great, but they are a large water use opportunity, on average 35 to 50 gallons. Enjoy them on occasion, but really your best way to go is with a shower. And then just like your laundry, you want to make sure that your dishwasher is full so that you maximize the use of that water when you're doing dishes. And then the other is just miscellaneous events or activities that are more hard to classify on this measurement. So how does it all add up? All those different options that you have in terms of water conservation add up. So toilets, minimize 2 flushes a day, you're going to save 5.5 gallons. Showers, shortened by 2 minutes, you're going to save 4.3 gallons. Faucets, reduction by 5 minutes, another 5.5 gallons. Your clothes washer, 1 load less, an average of 36 gallons per week. You roll all that up. This is what I'm calling the easy stuff. You're at 51.3 gallons, or just over half of your daily goal for your indoor use. And then if you fix all those leaks in the house, you immediately get a big gain, and you can have 134.5% on your water savings. So your opportunity there is to look for the leaks and fix them, and that makes your daily goal or a reduction goal much easier to achieve. So now we're going to move on to outdoor water conservation. The US EPA focuses in on 3 major areas to conserve water. That's your landscaping, your irrigation, and stormwater management, or rain barrels. And we're going to talk about all of those issues. Back to that Aquacraft study, it recognizes reducing your irrigated areas, encouraging the use of low or no water use plants, kind of drought tolerant plants, and ways to prevent over irrigation. We're going to go into all these topics in great detail. So this is the no-no list, and this is similar to what we saw earlier in terms of what the state of California is requiring all households to do. We have to reduce or eliminate watering between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So basically install a timer is one option. No outside watering that results in running down the gutter. That kind of makes sense. No more washing of vehicles or trailers without a control top hose or a nozzle. No watering of hard surfaces. Use a broom. There's a lot of commercials and campaigns I'm seeing out right now that just are really focusing in on using a broom. It's really not that hard to do. And elimination of non-recirculating fountains. So if your fountain is just kind of a one-way, you got to turn that off by law. No more than twice per week watering. And if there has been a rain event, you have to wait 48 hours or 2 days before you water again. So those are your basic no-nos. So kind of a little bit of humor here. Does your landscape have a drinking problem? If you see pooling water like that around an emitter or some part of your irrigation system, you've got a major leak or something's wrong. Don't just ignore it. It's not going to fix itself. You want to check that out and address that. So here's the state of California's Save Our Water website's recommendation on ways to save water outside. Appropriate plant selection is the first option. The right plants for your soil. Good, efficient irrigation. The use of mulch whenever possible. I really focus in on this. And then appropriate maintenance. A good system that's periodically maintained will save you water and make your life a whole lot easier. So as I mentioned, mulch is one of my favorite ways to save water. It has a lot of benefits and bonuses. It helps prevent weed production, because what happens is when you blanket out a bunch of organic matter, groundwood or finished compost on the soil, that blanket becomes a barrier to photosynthesis. In other words, if there's a seed in the ground, that blanket of mulch makes it more difficult for that seed to grow and germinate. So instead of having hundreds of weeds, you may only have a half a dozen weeds. And they're also easier to basically weed out because your soil is going to be moist under the mulch. So you're able to pull those weeds out easily and actually toss them out and make them part of your mulch. Incorporating mulch on your soil helps to prevent soil compaction. It regulates and keeps your soil temperatures more even during the hottest part of the summer or the season. And it also helps to promote healthy soil and healthy plants. You're creating a microorganism habitat in that organic matter on your soil, and all the bugs and all the microorganisms are going to live in there and improve your soil condition. In other words, you're going to get more worms. Okay, so there's a good example of how you can use ground wood as a mulch material. It looks really handsome and it keeps those weeds down. Another option is to take advantage of the Contra Costa Water District's coupons that the local landscapers or the landscape supply companies have coupons so you can go buy mulch material at a discount. It's okay to be raw, and here I'm kind of being funny about learning how to compost. How many people have a compost bin in their backyard right now? It's great. I see a lot of hands going up. It's a really wonderful activity to divert material away from the landfill, but then you get to take that compost and put it into your soil, and compost has tremendous water holding capacity. Here on the bottom bullet point there, it says that with just a 5% increase in organic matter, read compost, you're going to quadruple the soil's water holding capacity. So in other words, put some compost in the dirt and it's going to conserve water because it's going to keep the water in place and you don't have to water as often. So it's a really great opportunity. And then here we've got the fancy phrase xeriscape. And xeriscape is, like I said, a fancy phrase, but it basically means water conserving landscape, low or no water plantation. And basically you mimic the native plants that grow here in Northern California. And there are many different ways of calling it water conserving landscapes, drought tolerant landscaping, smartscaping, California friendly, bay friendly. They're all basically techniques on planning throughout your property that allow you to save a lot of water. So here's a few images you can see. It doesn't have to be anything stark like a desert. It's a very handsome landscape right there. You can see they're incorporating a lot of organic matter or mulch and some drought tolerant plants. Here they're going more of the succulent and cactus mode with rocks and cacti in there. Or you can also go with low water using flowers. So it doesn't have to be unpleasant or ugly maybe. It can be very, very lovely if you choose the right plants. The Contra Costa Water District has the Lawn to Garden Rebate Program. They're offering a kind of a bounty on your lawn up to $1,000. $1 per square foot. You definitely want to check out their website. They've got all the details in terms of how to participate in the program. And they also offer 2 hours, they'll reimburse you for 2 hours in the use of a professional landscape designer. They'll come out and advise you on how to redesign your front yard. It's a great opportunity, so go to the website to get more information on that. And then some basic water-wise tips. Here we've got a photo of a manzanita, which definitely is water conservative. So here we go. Again, watering 2 days per week. And if you've got mature plants, they can handle even as low as 1 time a week. And when you have plants that are very mature, they have hardy root systems, and they're going to be more tolerant. So they're, again, going to that low and no water plantation is really the way to go here in Northern California. Survey says that the best way to water is by hand. It's the most efficient and it's the most conservative in terms of watering. The downside is it takes a little longer, but I look at that as an upside because it gets you to slow down, get outside, and kind of hang out with your plants for a few minutes or maybe longer. And it's really a pleasant way to spend your time perhaps. So, watering by hand is very inexpensive. Basically, it's a hose and a nozzle. You get out there and you water. Okay? And the Water District is offering free water nozzles. So just get a hold of them and get yourself a free water nozzle if you need it. So another tip here are these quick release devices that allow you to set up your nozzles and different hoses with this quick release mechanism. It's a one-time setup and they're really, really handy. Using a drip system is also a good way to go. A drip system is your next best way to go if you're not going to hand water, using a simple irrigation system, and there's a lot of new technology or reinventing of these emitters. So if you go to your local hardware store and talk to the person in the landscape area, they're going to be able to give you some good options on some of the new sprinkler heads or drip system heads that are out there. And if you've got an old system, you might want to go look at some of the new heads because they're going to be more efficient and actually a little bit better at watering than just a few years ago. So you want to check that out. And there's an image of that timer that I was just telling you about. Using a drip system, if you don't have the time to hand water, has some benefits. You're going to prevent disease because rather than watering everything, and some of the plants are not so keen on being overwatered, they might mold or get some powdery mildew. With a drip irrigation system, you're dripping right at the root system instead of spraying all over the plants themselves. So that helps to minimize potential disease. It's also going to minimize weed growth because instead of spraying all over the area, you're just going to be putting water directly on a particular plant and not watering the open soil around the plant, promoting more weed growth and production. Okay. In this image here on the left, you can see this got a little kind of an interesting little gizmo there that you'd mount up on your drain system, on your gutter system, up on the upper edge of your house. And what that does is it can sense when there's water or when there's a rain event. Now that's pretty fancy, but since then, there are now smart timers, modern intelligent devices that are actually talking to satellites that will adjust your timing schedule. So let's say you set it for twice a week, so many minutes. It will know based on satellite images and information about weather patterns, whether or not it should continue to water today, or it says, hey, it's going to be a moist day or a rain day or a cool day, and it will adjust your water pattern. So getting these smart irrigators are really a really great option. And you can save money. The EPA estimates that you can save nearly 8,800 gallons of water with these timers. Now, like anything, you have to make sure that they're set properly. So if you don't adjust it or set it initially correctly, you could actually end up wasting water. So it's very important to read the owner's manual and set these things so that you're not wasting any water. So here we go. We've got these weather-based irrigation controllers, and that's what we mean by smart timers. And the Water District is offering a reimbursement on particular models. So once again, you're going to want to go to the website, the Coastal Water District's website, and find out what models qualify for this discount. In order for that discount, however, you must receive one of their free water use surveys. So you have to engage with them to qualify for reimbursement on that emitter. So again, you're going to need to work with the Water District to get a survey to qualify for a rebate on your smart timer. And these home use evaluations, it's going to inspect both indoor and outdoor use. They're going to identify opportunities. They might even be able to give you some tips on how to read your meter. So there's a lot that comes out of having these evaluations. So you want to contact the district on how to participate in their survey program. So for those of you that have pools and hot tubs and spas, you have an opportunity to save water. The biggest thing to do is always, when not using the unit, cover it up. You basically save about 50% or conserve 50% due to evaporation by simply covering your pool or spa. Of course, you want to look for leaks, fix them. You want to shut down any unnecessary fountains or waterfalls. That's just going to increase, your evaporation. And then my favorite one here, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek here. No fun allowed. No splashing. No water fights. So you just get in there and you stay calm. No, but seriously, have fun in the pool. The most important thing is to cover the pool, and then the last bullet there is to cover your overflow. When you're in the pool and you're filling it up and you're splashing around, make sure that you kind of plug the overflow area so that the water stays in the pool. And then when you get out and the water's not bouncing all around, you unplug it so that your overflow system is back in line. So there's been a question about pools versus lawns. Some people say, well, pools are really wasteful, when in fact, the information that's out there, a study done by the Los Angeles Times, shows that after 3 years, it's proven that a pool is more conservative than a lawn of the relative same footprint. So in other words, if your pool area is 20 by 20 and your lawn is 20 by 20, your pool actually uses less water than the same square footage as a lawn. So that's pretty interesting. So put in a pool, go swimming, have some fun, take out your lawn. Car washes are also on board with water conservation. And again, going back to the Water District's website, you can get some coupons to local car wash facilities that will give you a discount. And it's shown that using a car wash is more conservative on water than for you washing it at home. Now, these are average numbers that's showing that 45 to 80 gallons if you do it, whereas 30 to 45 gallons when you take it to your local car wash. Okay, so to summarize both indoor and outdoor water conservation, here are your top 10 plus actions that you can take. So reduce the number of flushes, take shorter showers, reduce your faucet use time, fix all of those leaks, and reduce the number of loads of laundry that you do throughout the week. Outside, minimize the amount of water-intensive plants. Again, fix all of your leaks. Reduce the number of days that you water, a maximum of 2 days per week. Water early in the morning or late in the evening. Your best option is watering by hand. Your next best option is using an irrigation drip system, and then always avoid overwatering, whether it's by hand or with a timer or with a drip system. You always want to avoid overspray and any runoff. So kind of this concept, we're talking about water savings. We can read flyers and we can look at an online website. A poster doesn't save money. A poster doesn't save water, but you can. So that's the whole idea, is to recognize the power that you have as an individual to conserve water. And then another idea here is, for those who have the privilege to know, and now you do, you have the duty to act. So now that you have some tools, some techniques on conserving, it's your duty to act and to use those. So I want to throw in kind of an extra little bonus here. One of the things that's really important is when we eat, to understand that it's just not the food that's on our plate, but the energy and resources that it takes to put the food on your plate. So here we have an empty plate, and now we've got a plate full of food. And the question as it relates to water conservation is, how much water does it take to put food on our plate? Again, the Los Angeles Times did an interesting study here. This particular plate right here, we've got a steak, salad, and some rice, and a small glass of wine. Almost 1,000 gallons of water is required for this one meal. Okay, it's quite amazing. So they took various types of food and liquid and broke it down, and you can see that middle chart right here, right there. It shows proteins and starches and beverages and fruits and vegetables and how much water they take. On the left, the larger spheres represent proteins, heavy water users. On your far right, fruits and vegetables using the least amount of water to produce those things. So I'm not proposing starving, and I'm not telling you how to eat. What I'm actually saying is, eat everything on your plate, because it takes water to put stuff on your plate. And so you don't want to waste your food, because you're wasting water as well as the food. So here is a kind of an example of different types of liquids and how much water is required to produce or to deliver that. So you can see here that, for example, on the left, just under 2 gallons per fluid ounce for beer. And then what's the largest water user here is pineapple juice. And then another high user is your milk. So if you really want to save water, drink beer. Okay? So here's another example. You can go to this website, the Los Angeles Times website, and they have this interesting calculator. You can put stuff in the glass or on the plate to kind of run a calculation. So here we've got a couple of eggs, a couple pieces of bread, a grapefruit, and of course, beer. And this tallies not 1,000 gallons of water, but just around 230 gallons of water for this water conservative meal. And again, looks like the best option there is beer. Okay? Less than 20 gallons for that glass of beer, and almost 100 gallons for the eggs. So, you know, it's a pretty easy choice. A liquid diet is a way to save water. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Anyhow. All right, now we're going to talk about gray water systems. So what exactly is a gray water system, or what does that mean? And I'm going to get into the specific code so that there's no vagaries here. And we're going to talk about the California Health and Safety Code. And here's what it says. Treated wastewater that has not been contaminated by any toilet discharge, has not been affected by infectious, contaminated, or unhealthy bodily wastes, and does not present a threat from contamination by unhealthful processing, manufacturing, or operating wastes. So kind of a mouthful, but basically no dirty, nasty water qualifies for use as gray water. The code also specifies what household sources can provide gray water. And here's what it says. Gray water can be from bathtubs, showers, bathroom wash basins, clothes washing machines, and laundry tubs. Any wastewater coming from kitchen sinks or dishwashers cannot be classified as gray water in California. Okay? So there are many possible sources for gray water in your household to be used on site. In other words, instead of running it down your sewer system, disperse the water on site. Next, I'm going to go over the California Plumbing Code, Chapter 16A, and what its intents. Here it says, it's intended to, 1, conserve water by facilitating greater reuse of laundry, shower, lavatory, and other sources of discharge for irrigation and/or indoor use. 2, reduce the number of non-compliant gray water systems by making legal compliance easily achievable. 3, provide guidance for avoiding potentially unhealthful conditions. And 4th, provide an alternative way to release stress on private sewage disposal system by diverting the gray water. So the idea here is they're really trying to make it easier for you and to maximize the value of water that's in our household that would traditionally just go down the drain, literally. So, pop quiz. Which water source does not require a permit to be part of a gray water system? A bathtub, shower, a clothes washer, bathroom sink, or laundry sink? Which of those do not require a permit? It is indeed a clothes washer. And so moving forward on this discussion on gray water, we're going to focus in seriously on how to take advantage of the gray water system and use your clothes washer in that system. So here's the math. We went over this earlier, but we're going to repeat it here. Clothes washer. The average household does 7 loads per week. That equals 13,000 plus gallons of water per year. So by diverting all of that water, by diverting 13 plus thousand gallons of water, you're at almost 40% of your daily diversion goal. So these are significant numbers. And not only that, you get to use this water a little more liberally than you would if you're not using a gray water system. So it's a really win-win. Okay, here are some of the do's and don'ts as it relates, the requirements for a gray water system. It says, under the Gray Water Code in the year 2009, washing machines that do not alter existing plumbing do not require a permit as long as these guidelines are followed. Okay, here we go. The system must have a valve to direct flow between the sewer and septic or gray water system. It has to have a labeled valve and must send the water to an irrigation system or discharge field. You must keep that water on the same property as where it's produced. You must have a maintenance manual, and you must discharge under a 2-inch covered area of mulch with a plastic shield or stones. We're going to go over all this shortly. It cannot have these things. It cannot contain diaper water. It cannot have any hazardous chemicals. You can't have pooling of any of this water on site. It can't be accessible. In other words, water that's being discharged cannot be, you can't have humans or animals in contact with this water. You cannot have a pump. You cannot include a specific pump. There's already a pump on your washing machine. It cannot connect to any existing potable water system or supply. And it cannot affect any other part of the building, such as the electrical or structural components. And a lot of these are common sense, and you wouldn't do it anyhow, but it needs to be stated what you can and cannot do as it relates to a gray water system. So here's the fine print. Here's the very specific letter of the law or the ordinance, Chapter 16A. So we're going to zoom in here. Everybody got that? Okay. So the system isn't very complicated. Here's a simple diagram. You've got your washing machine on the left. You can see there's some plumbing going on behind the washer, and then that water is being diverted through an irrigation or piping system outside to plants or trees. And we're going to go into specific close-up detail on how this all works. So, the individual system components, it's basically 3 elements: a 3-way valve, an anti-siphon valve, and your pipes that leave the back of the machine out to a discharge field. So here's an image showing that. You can see in the foreground is the clothes washer and your black pipe that normally comes out and goes down into your plumbing, your discharge system. At the top of that, you'll see a 3-way valve, and you can divert it to your regular sewer or you can divert it to your gray water system. And you can also see in the upper right corner there your anti-siphon valve. So this is a very good example, a very simple diagram or image of how a gray water system can be set up. Okay, and I want to show you here, right here, this is an anti-siphon valve. Right here's an anti-siphon valve, couple of $3 at your hardware store. So very basic, nothing complicated. And as you see in that diagram, it's simply mounted on a few inches of pipe at the highest point on the system. It's an anti-siphon valve. There are kits available in the marketplace. There are inexpensive ones, there are expensive ones. Basically, the image there shows the three-way valve, and anti-siphon valve, and a few of the plumbing fittings. It can easily be done at your local hardware store. The most expensive component is that three-way valve, anywhere from $20 to $40 or $50. Some of them can be quite expensive. So there's a good close-up of a three-way, what they call a ball valve, and you connect that to your discharge field and your washing machine. There's an anti-siphon valve. And there's another image of an anti-siphon valve. They've chosen to mount this outside as opposed to inside the laundry room there. Okay? One of the requirements is to have the system labeled. It doesn't have to be anything more fancy than what you see here on this image. They've simply taken some painter's tape and labeled it. You can see on the left, if you turn it to the left, it says the water's going to go to the sewer. If you turn it upward, it's going to go out. In this case, it looks like they've got a bamboo garden going on out there, and they're watering their bamboo with gray water. So very simple. So that qualifies as your labeled manual, user's manual. This particular image is really important. I think it's the most important to pay attention to. If you notice on the bottom where it says use hose clamp, that's the hose coming out of the back of the clothes washer. And it's under pressure because there's a pump that pumps the water out of the machine and out that pipe. And so right there, you want to make sure you have it clamped on with a hose clamp. If you just put that on with friction, if that thing slipped off during the load, it would pump water all over the floor. So that particular coupling right there requires a hose clamp. The others can all be friction, but that particular one you want a hose clamp. And then above you say be sure to anchor to the wall. Now you've all noticed that when your washing machine's in a spin cycle, the thing vibrates around. So if you've got a hose and all that plumbing going on behind, and that stuff is vibrating around, you might damage the wall, or you might actually break your configuration there. So what you do is you just take a block, mount it on the wall, and then mount your plumbing stuff onto that block. It's not very complicated. You can see you've just got a couple of straps there, and then a block of wood. And then above that, again, you see the label showing somebody, a guest or somebody that's coming over, how to use it. Turn it to the left, it's the gray water, and upright, it goes to the sewer system. So nothing fancy, just a simple diagram telling the user how the gray water system operates. So now once you've set up your operating system, your plumbing, and you turn the lever, it's got to go somewhere. So you've got to plumb it outside of your house. And so here it's coming out of the wall. A couple of tips there that I've learned is you don't necessarily just want to drill from the inside of the house directly out, because when you do, you'll blow up that stucco right there. So what you want to do is you want to do all your measurements right. You want to drill a pilot hole, a smaller hole from the outside in, and a pilot hole from the inside out, and then carefully drill your larger hole, which is for your larger 2-inch pipe. Okay? So you just want to make sure that you just be careful so you don't make a bigger miss than you need to. All right. So now once you've got your initial pipe coming out of the house, you're gonna build off that pipe and spread it throughout your property. So there again on the top center here, you'll see your anti-siphon valve coming out of the house there, and then the piping dropping down, and from there they're fanning out all the pipes. So we're going to go through a series of images to show how this is done. So basically, it's similar to building a drip system or an irrigation system in your property. You run the pipes throughout your property, and then you have little chutes or spurs coming off the main pipe to different areas throughout your property where you want to irrigate. So you can see to the left there's a little black irrigation point. Here, they're digging trenches and laying down all the pipe throughout the property. And then ultimately, when it's completed, you'll cover it with mulch, or with a plastic top, or with some gravel. There you see it's trenched in, and they're running it down the side of the house, and they're going to spur that all along, all kinds of discharge points. Here's another way. At each one of those emission points, you can cover it with, this looks like to be a simple plastic nursery pot, upside down, cut with a flap. And here's another example installed. You can see how easy that is to do. It's nothing that complicated, really. You can also buy commercially made valve covers, and these are available at your local store. And then here's a good image of a complete project, all mulched up with just your discharge drip point right there. And this woman here has decided to cover her discharge point with a piece of terracotta. You can see she's leaning on that, and she's pulled that off so she can inspect the emission point there and then put the cover back on. So it's a real simple, aesthetically pleasing. I like this one right here. The image is a little bit fuzzy, but basically what they've done is they've run the pipe into a 5-gallon bucket, and then they've run 6 laterals off of that. And they've put this bucket in the middle of a round sphere, a round trench there, and at the end of each of those 6 points, they're going to put a bush or a tree. You can see that it's all in there, and they've got some chicken wire all in there, and ultimately they'll bury all that with soil and whatever. So here's a top view. You can see that the main line comes in, fills that bucket, and then it'll run down those 6 laterals to those discharge points. So it's just a really clever way to do it. So here's just some specific examples of how you can put your discharge points in your property. You can buy the commercially available ones. They come in rectangular, round, and you can see they're pre-cut, ready to be used immediately. Or my favorite is reuse. You can use your nursery buckets here, black or green, and you just you invert it and cut a little hole and flap it out. Discussion on different kinds of soaps, because reminder, you're using your laundry, and whatever soap you're using in your laundry machine is going to be discharged out into the property. So you want to use biodegradable and safe soaps. You want to look at the label, you want to avoid any product that has something that says salt or boron. Okay, and if you forget this, it's really easy. You just go online and you can look up, gray water soaps, and you'll get all kinds of information. You'll get brands and suggestions and things to avoid, for example, salts and borons. Also, if you're used to using chlorine bleach to get your clothes cleaner or brighter, you can continue to do that. But if you do so, you're going to need to switch the valve and run that chlorinated water down the drain, not out to your yard, because that harms the plants. If you want to use a less toxic option, you can use a hydrogen peroxide bleach, and then you can still use or discharge that water into your gray water field. So different cleaning products. Now this information really talks greater than just using your clothes washer. If you chose to also take advantage of other gray water sources, like your shower, like your bathroom basin, other places like that, you would need a permit, but you can still use that water. And what they're talking about here is some cleaning products, some beauty products can change the pH of the water. So you want to be aware of that. And if you do use those products, you might want to make sure that the plants that you're putting your water on aren't going to be harmed by any change in pH. So that's just a matter of doing a little bit of research. It says here, for example, like liquid soaps don't change the pH, but sometimes bar soaps do. So there's just little things to pay attention to if you're going to really go for it and go beyond just your clothes washer and use other sources for your gray water. So here's just a short list. I'm not condoning any of these, but if you just typed in gray water soaps, there's several different brands out there that are non-toxic, biodegradable, and appropriate for use. Let's move on to rain barrel systems. Of course, let's start out with a quiz. A pop quiz. What percentage of total water used does the average single-family household use outdoors? And the answer is yes, 58%. We covered that at the very beginning of the workshop, so it's kind of a memory recall. But yes, we use 58% of our overall water use outside. All right? So what that means is, since we use so much of our water outside, any opportunity to minimize that use is a good thing, and using a rain barrel is one of those good things. Making a rain barrel. There are many different ways to do it. And when I started to put together this presentation, I was focused in on showing everyone how to build a rain barrel out of your standard blue 55-gallon drum. And what I discovered is there's actually many, many different ways of doing it. It's kind of like there's many different ways of baking a cake. There's many different ways of making a rain barrel. And as you see in this image, they come in all different shapes and sizes and colors. So I'm not going to fixate on just the standard, typical blue 55-gallon drum, but more into the basic construction elements, safety considerations, and making them a little more handsome as part of your landscape scheme. So your basic elements. Your basic elements include, of course, your barrel or large container, a pipe from your gutter system down into the barrel, a spigot to dispense the water, and an overflow device. So this image right here is a classic example of a very simple water system. You can see the gutter system coming down into the barrel. On the upper right, you can see the overflow pipe there, and on the lower left, you can see the gate valve for dispersing or using the water out of the rain barrel. There are many different kits available. I've got an example of a kit here that I bought at the local hardware store, and in that kit, it has all the basic elements that are necessary to assemble a very simple gray water system. This particular kit I bought was under $20. So you don't even have to buy a kit. The kit makes it easy because maybe you don't have a hole saw or you don't have a spigot or a gate valve, but you can buy all the basic components individually or separately. Here's another example of a kit that you can buy. This one's on a more expensive side. It's got stickers to label everything and a bit there for drilling holes, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to show you several examples here of the diversion system, the diverter from your downspout over to your rain barrel. So some of them are round, some of them are square. They come in different colors, shapes, and sizes. So this particular unit is for a rectangular downspout. The other one was for round. Here's a simple one that you just cut into your downspout and put this coupler in there, this diverter in there, and then that water is diverted off to your collection tank or barrel. This particular unit has a little trap in there to catch branches and gravel and leaves that collect in your gutter. So when you get the first rain, often there's a lot of debris that will come down your spout, and that little catchment device allows you to divert it away and so it doesn't go down into your 55-gallon or into your rain barrel collection system. Again, this one here, it's got a little diverter valve here so you can divert it to your regular disbursement down into your yard or wherever the water normally goes, or you can turn it over into your rain barrel. So you can see how you can add different parts, different curved parts or components to set up your system. This one's made for a round downspout versus rectangular. Again, this is another model with a little flap or a little opening hatch that allows you to get the junk out of that catch there. This one here is showing close-up of how you drill a hole and then put in the rubber diverter into that hole. So you drill a hole, you put that device in there, and then now this one here, this is really clever. It's kind of hard to see, but that is made of 2-liter water bottles that are all nested together that then run down into that drum. It's a really clever system. Ingenious for sure. So you don't have to buy these things. You can just reuse some of the bottles. So I'm going to show you how the basic scheme of a rain barrel here. So you can see here they've cut a hole and they've put that kind of pipe in there. I've got an example of one right here. I've also got an example of that right here. What this device does right here is you drill a hole in the top of your barrel. You put that in there, and this is going to catch any leaves or debris that might come through if you don't have another way of catching that material. So you cut a hole in your barrel, you drop this device in that hole, and then you connect this thing onto that there. So you can see they're putting that into that screen device right there. It's not that complicated. You get to use power tools. That's always fun. And here I'm going to show you some examples of different kinds of gate valves. They come in all shapes and sizes and colors and materials. So you can see we're mounting them in different ways. This one here looks like they've used some sort of a cement. I want to point out, notice how this one is pointing straight down to the ground, and really there's very little clearance between the threads and the ground right there. So that makes it very difficult to put your hose on unless that valve is scooted over to where you've got some space or you elevate the tank. So it's an important consideration to be aware of here. So this particular valve is at a slightly different angle, 45-degree angle. And this one comes straight out. You see what I'm talking about here. So it depends on the particular barrel you have, where you're going to site the barrel, and your choice of connections or fittings here. Here's another one, just a simple plastic connector here shooting straight out. Now this particular image of drilling the hole for the overflow. So once this barrel starts filling up, if you get above this, you need to let the water go someplace. And so you want to control where it overflows to. So you drill a hole, pretty simple stuff. You can use a spade bit here is also an option versus using a round hole cutter. You can see this person here has cut a big hole on the top and they're putting in that fitting. There's different ways. Other folks won't cut a hole like that. They might use where you can see the white caps are threaded in there. They might not cut a hole and they might have water coming in that way, which makes it a little more challenging in terms of how you mount your overflow fitting there. I think this one's kind of funny. They're definitely sure to have an overflow hole there. What is that, about a 5-inch hole? Why it's so big is beyond me, but it definitely will qualify as your overflow. So again, different examples of fittings that can be used on your overflow: plastic, galvanized. Here's a nice large round fitting. And you can see how they just come off the side of the barrel and run the water. Another tool you'll want to possibly use is a jigsaw. That can be used to cut those round holes or any kind of large hole, or you can just use what they call a key saw. So that's a pretty simple tool. So different kinds of cool tools for cutting holes. This particular image is of a garbage can, which is readily available at the hardware store. The downside to this is that in most cases this is about 30 gallons. So you're not getting the capacity that you might get out of a 55-gallon drum. Also, sometimes a plastic garbage can cost more than a second-hand barrel. So if budget's a concern, you want to look at that. And certainly in this case, the capacity kind of, for me, is a deal breaker. But you can use, if you had these around, or if you wanted to do multiple containers, this would work for you. Okay, I like this. Even though this is a garbage can, I like this as a classic kind of Sunset Magazine image here. You can see they've got the overflow is using a piece of a hose, and they're using some conduit straps to mount that hose to the side of the container. And then down on the lower left, you can see they've just got a simple gate valve spigot there, and they've elevated that drum to allow them to be able to put that hose on there. And then in the background, you can see the guy's watering the yard with his rainwater. So that's a pretty good system. Here's your more typical, your classic 55-gallon drum, and some companies are out there making these available, particularly in the East. This looks like an olive drum, an olive barrel being reused. You can see they've got the overflow fitting on there. Here's a 55-gallon drum, all connected to the downspout. Again, they're elevated using a cinder block or something with their gate valve on the bottom. This one's one of my favorites. Really interesting plumbing going on here. But it works, and it looks like he's able to divert it from the top there, but won't get too much into that. Different examples, different shapes and sizes. As I said, there's many different drums available. This particular image is an example of how not to do it, because that water is pooling right there. If that sat around for any period of time, mosquitoes would get in there and start doing their thing. So that's an example. Don't do that. You don't want pooling water. What you want is to have like a screen, like a screen door screen over that to keep the mosquitoes out and also to keep the debris out. Here's a commercial bin, really handsome, probably very expensive compared to buying a used drum, but definitely handsome. It's already, already drilled and ready to go for you. Looks really good. Then on the larger scale, if you're really getting serious, you can look for one of these. These are like 250, 300 gallon units. This one's good because it's dark in color. This one looks like it's black versus this other one here, which is kind of the milk jug translucent. What you'd want to do with this is you'd want to paint that, because if you don't paint that, the sun's going to go through there and you're going to start to get green, or you're going to get algae buildup on the inside of that unit. So you want to paint that somehow. Now we're getting into multiple unit systems here. You can see the first one coming from the downspout fills the second one. So you've got 110 gallons, and here you've got, looks like 5 or 6 tanks right there. So you can go crazy on this thing. And in this case, this might be a multi-unit apartment or something like that, where they've got a lot of units in there and a lot of roof space to capture water. Here again, they're using different drums. Maybe the one on the right looks commercial, the two on the left, a little more secondhand. This is another one of my favorites. This looks like a living project here. You can see he's got his caulking gun there, and another barrel on the left maybe ready to go. Quite an interesting configuration, so it depends on how interesting you are and how you do it. This one is popular in the wine country. You can see they're using a second-hand wine barrel here. Real nice. I do question where they put their gate valve. They put it way up. It's a good foot off the bottom. So yeah, that's interesting. And we're getting into some camouflage units here. They're painted to blend in a little more handsomely into your garden scheme. This one looks like a marsh setting. Here, these are some being sold at like a farmer's market or gathering, different colors. So it starts to get whimsical and playful. I like some of these. Coming up, this one, another favorite here. We know about the salt, and when it rains, it stores, which is a play, because when it rains, it pours is a slogan on the salt, but when it rains, it stores is a slogan on that drum. Here's my favorite, R2D2, really well done. So some considerations to take. If, for example, we do get some rain, some serious rain, which would be wonderful, you don't want to fill an already full barrel, so you want to use that water. What I think is going on here is, if you look carefully, that overflow hose is kinked. So it's not able to overflow, so it's just boiling out of the top of that drum. That's not how you want to do that. And this one here, the water is coming in so fast, even though it's got an overflow, it can't get rid of the water fast enough. So you want to make sure that the surface area of your building that you're capturing water from is not so large that that little drum can't take the volume of water coming off during a large rainstorm. So make sure your gutters are clean and clear. Again, the roof size is important. Empty the rain barrel before a big rain event, and then open the spigot or gate valve or the overflow if necessary. This image is really interesting. Instead of having one of those trap systems where you can capture or trap the leaves and gravel that's coming off your roof or your gutter system, this one, the way it works is the water fills up the pipe on the left, fills up, and then once it's full, it overflows into the drum. And the first material that may have debris in it is caught and goes to the bottom of that white tube, and then later on you can just simply take that cap valve off, that cap off, and flush out all the junk, the debris that's in there. So real simple system. All right, things to consider for safety. Water is very heavy, So you want to be careful. You don't want an open system that an animal, a bird can fall in and drown, or a kid. So that's just not how to do it. So you want a closed system to prevent animals from getting in there, and as well as mosquitoes, okay? So you want to use some sort of screen on there. And then you want to make sure that the barrel is stable and is not going to fall over if for whatever reason the soil gets soft and that drum starts to list and fall over. It can really do some damage or injure somebody. And you want to use a dark barrel to minimize algae growth. So here's this looks like a commercial stand and some homemade stands, or you can use cinder blocks. There we got a homemade stand elevated with a hose ready to go. You can use bricks. Now this one is an example of something I would be a little nervous about. You could see if it really was a wet, soggy winter and that thing's sitting up so high, if the ground got soft, that particular barrel could start leaning and fall over. So at the very minimum, you want to strap that down or do something to make sure that thing's not going to fall over. So that's kind of an example not to do it. So kind of in closing, we've got a raised bed with a rain barrel system in there, watering the fruits and vegetables, the vegetables and flowers in that garden. And then of course, this is always a good way of teaching young kids a way of recycling water. So now that we've gone through all this information on ways to conserve, I'm going to ask you to take a pledge with me. For those of you at home, I'm going to ask you all to raise your right hand and to repeat after me. You ready? I pledge to be a water conservator and to always do my best at conserving and reusing water in as many ways as I can. So congratulations. I'm known as the Waste Sleuth, and so you're all now Deputy Waste Sleuths. I have information here on this slide showing some local resources. Most of you are aware of this. Anybody that knows about the internet knows that there's a lot of resources available. So you've got the Contra Costa Water District, the AquaCraft report that I used for a lot of the data throughout this presentation, the state of California, and other good sources of information are there on that slide. And then I just want to point out that the City of Martinez sponsors many sustainable educational workshops, home composting, worm composting, and this one here is called Zero Waste and Be a Sustainable Citizen. It goes into in depth on ways that you as an individual can do more than you're already doing, way beyond your basic recycling, and it relates to greenhouse gas reduction as mandated by the state of California. So go to the city's website and look for the list of upcoming workshops, and I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you very much for coming out. Thank you.